Okay, Chaver, let's learn. Sefer Pituchei Chotam from Rabi Yakov Avichatzera. We are finishing Sefer Bamidbar this week with Pashas Matos Masei. I will share with you a piece of Torah from Rabi Yakov on Pashas Matos. So let's begin. We're taught in this week's Parsha the halachas of Hechsher Keilim and Keilim. It's taught to us by Elazar HaKohen. He tells the soldiers returning from war that you have to, the gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, and lead, anything that went through the fire, you put through fire, and then you put it into Keilim, you put it into a mikvah, and if it wasn't used with fire, then you could just do hagala to it, and then you clean your clothing, you go to the mikvah, and you're ready to come back into the camp. All right. Rabi Yakov here is Megala, is Meramez. He shows us in this parsha some advice in how to learn Torah and what the proper focus needs to be when we're learning. So first he begins with a Mishnah in Pirkei Avos. Torah is meant to be learned lishma, and if you do, you get great things. But you got to be careful, because if you're learning lishma means that is your primary focus. And I'm not doing it for ulterior motives. I'm not learning for anything else. And that's important. And you really need to be focused on learning. And he says, you can't really have much else in mind. If you're going to be too busy wishing to accumulate wealth, that's going to be a focus of yours. He says even the slightest desire to accumulate wealth will take away from your success in learning Torah. And even if you're working, which is great, but you need to minimize your business to be able to allow yourself to learn some Torah. Second point Rabbi Yaakov makes is you have to be willing to be moida ala emes. You can't be so stubborn. You got to be willing to admit when the truth hits you. And that shows that your motives are true when you're able to do that. Now, Rav says, Rabbi Yaakov, you can't be too strict, you can't be impatient. Le'akaptan malamed. And more, you should try to study with somebody else. You should learn with others. The pasuk, the Gemara in Brachas tells us that Cherv el habadim v'noyalu, when Talmidei Chacham learn by themselves, bad b'bad, they becomes tipshus, they become foolish. You got to fight laziness. You got to be oz kanamer kal kanesh rotz katzvi v'giber ka'ari la'asais ritzon avicha shebashamayim. And finally, Yaakov says that you need to daven, you need to have a broken heart and be able to daven and to be able to gain the zechuyos, the wonderful marriage of learning Lishma. Okay, this sounds great, but it's difficult. Rabbi Yaakov will give us some advice on how to get this as well. But first, let's see the remes. Ve'emer Elazar HaKohen. Interesting, this parsha is taught by Elazar, not by Moshe. It's taught by Elazar HaKohen. Elazar tells the people that Elazar is a remes to the Yetzer HaTov. The Yetzer tells you. He's the one speaking here. He's the Ezer Kel. He's coming with help from above, help from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to help us be able to learn. And a Kohen is one who gives his life for Kedusha. So V'yemer Elazar HaKohen. And who does he speak to? He's not speaking to people that aren't willing to fight. Learning Torah is referred to as Milchamta Shel Torah. There's a fight in learning. And you fight with chavrusa, you fight with your own seichel, you fight with yourself. You got to really be willing to get involved. That's the Milchamta Shel Torah. And there's a Milchama that we all wage a war against a Yetzer Hara. So Elazar the Kohen Yetzer Hara tells us, and he's telling the people that are willing to fight. Here's some advice. Kol achem v'rakin shebater mi'utin. When the Torah uses the lashon of it's telling us to minimize. It's a miut. So you have to minimize zav kesef, the desire to accumulate wealth. You have to minimize that. Minimize that. And the pasuk lists off a few other things that we need to be to minimize. Nechoshes. Nechoshes is being a brazen, stubborn person is the expression Yeshayahu uses is umitzchacha nechusha. Your forehead is kabar. That's a way of saying you're stiff, you're brazen. You gotta be able to be made areanas. So be memayit nechushes. And be memayit barzel as well. Minimize your iron. Barzel is the Gematria 239, the same as a captain Malamed. You can't be stubborn like iron to teach Torah. And more, the pasuk in Mishlei says, Barzel bebarzel yochad. You have sharpened a knife. What do you use to sharpen a knife? You sharpen a knife, it's iron on iron. V'ish yachad pnei re'eu. And so too, a person will sharpen his friend. And by learning with someone else, you become sharper. And that is also symbolized, and that's the ach, you have to be mamait, bedil. Bedil is tin, and here it's a lashon of havdola. Be mamait your separation. Don't be separate. Be together with somebody else that will sharpen your learning. And ach, you have to be mamait ha'iferes. That's the lashon of lead, is heavy. It's afar, is dirt, is dirt, it's dust. It symbolizes the ground, that's the laziness, and be able to fight the laziness, we fight our heaviness, our sadness sometimes, and our sluggishness. We have to be to be mamayit that in order to be able to be part of the Milchamta Shel Torah and the Milchama against our Yitzhahara. So you may be saying to yourself, "Oh, that sounds great," but I got a Yitzhahara too. I got a Yitzhahara. So the pasuk continues. It says, Kol davar. A medaber is a human being. And any human being who's willing to take up the Torah, which is called Eish, V'toyer, he will get rid of his Yitzhahara. Kol davar sheyavai ba'eish, ta'riv viru ba'eish. If you take the Yitzhahara and you put it through the fire, you grab onto the fire of Torah, the passion of Torah, and you put your mind to learning, then V'toyer. Rabi Yakov says you'll be mitayir yourself from Yitzhahara if you through the Eish of Torah, through the fire of Torah. That's not enough. There's another. It's not enough just to learn. You need to daven too. You need to have a leiv nishbar. We need to daven. But meinida yischata. You got to add water. What kind of water? Meinida is the gematria 119, the same gematria of dimma, of tears. And that if we do tshuva with tears, then yischata will be forgiven. We'll cleanse ourselves. And furthermore, says Rabi Yakov, nida is gematria 70, which is the same gematria of Said. Another way to get yischata, to be cleansed from past averas and is through Said, through learning the pnimius of Torah, that acts as a mechaper and a cleanses our mind. But you may be thinking, you know what? Maybe I'd like to learn, but I can't get that passion. I don't have that aish. I don't have all that, to master the Torah and to really get the depths of the Torah. I don't know if that's me. And one who's not able to come into the fire, completely immerse himself internally. But he wants kapara. He wants to be pure. He doesn't want to be left out of Torah. So then, taviru b'mayim. Then immerse yourself in water. Al elani becheya eini yerdamayim. In tears, you got to daven. But in real tefillah that comes from the heart and expresses itself with tears, then you too will have tahara. But don't forget, v'chibastem bigdeichem, you clean your clothes. Bigdeichem, through learning Torah, through tefillah, through learning Said, v'chibastem bigdeichem, you cleanse your clothing. The clothing is our levushim, our nefesh, ruach and neshama, and we will be prepared for Bayem Hashvi, for the seventh day, for the Shabbos, for Eilam Harba. We'll come there with the Hartem, Tahar, the Acher Tavel Manachana, and then we'll be able to join HaKadosh Baruch Hu in the Machne Shechina. Through our Eish, through our Mayim, through our Torah, through our Tefillah, we'll come and be purified and be able to reap the benefits of Eilam Haba. A bracha this week to all of us, and a Tefillah to all of us, and all those of us that are here, and anybody celebrating a simcha this week, and especially a simcha of a new baby boy that was born, you should be able to be zoicha, to bring him to the eish of Torah and to the mayim of tefillah, and we should be zoicha together to come to the machin Shechina.